Why 30 is important to men and women. 30. Some would say it's just past the quarter-life crisis of being 25. They're trying to find yourself before the big 30. See, some of you will understand this more than others, but there is something about going through the decade between 30 and 40 that really changes a man. In speaking to men in the years I have been making content, and speaking to friends and male family members, there seems to be a thing of seeing the world through different eyes almost. In a sense, some of the crap you dealt with and were going through in your 20s gave you a newfound understanding of life and yourself. Now, I'm not saying this is all of us, but the level of maturity and or understanding some of us reach in this decade is astounding. Look at this example of maybe you didn't get much play from women in your 20s, but then you're seemingly fighting them off in your 30s. Yes, you can say of course many grow through their 20s to become the man they are in their 30s, but it also seems to be natural. From my point of view, for many men, it seems to be quite natural. But to coincide with our growth from one time period to another, it's also how women around us or our observations of women change in that time. See, in her 20s, she feels the world is hers, full of energy, tight body, pretty face, bursting with fertility. The type of woman that would drive you crazy, but you enjoy the press so much you may keep going back. An attractive 20+ years old woman basically. Prime, somewhat naive, no matter how intelligent she assumes. But after all the fun of the 20s, many women may now face a harsher reality in the 30s. Because whereas some men may never used to get much play in their 20s and get more now in their 30s, for a lot of women, not all, but for a lot of them, it's the reverse. They got far more play in their 20s and now they have to beg a man to even look at them. And yes, of course, because women have a biological clock, by the age of 35 it becomes slightly more difficult to conceive. Not impossible, but more difficult. So for women, starting a family is based on a time limit. Whereas for many men reach a conclusion where they may know what sort of woman they may want and try to find her and may realize she does not exist. Or they may have an understanding of women at that point where they may realize it's better to just remain by yourself and have your fun occasionally. Just be a bachelor basically who occasions a woman every now and again. For many men, that seems like a simpler and safer lifestyle if you choose to make sure you are being careful in your movements. There is something big that changes in us at the age of 30. That's why men that have gone past that age of 30, they may have reached a change at that point in their life. And men that are moving up towards the age of 30, they may be maneuvering and trying to do things, still unsure of what they are trying to do, and may still feel so in their 30s and 40s. And for however long. But 30 does seem to be a point where men either see the world for what it is and or they better learn to maneuver themselves as men in the world. To summarize, 3 decades is not really a long time, but for those that have just reached that age, that is their entire life. As men, you will then realize what you should have been focused on in your 20s. And you may then now try to focus on it in your 30s, which is a good thing. But also think that everything you're doing now should reflect where you want to be in time to come. As in, men that are older should still have that same thinking, and men that are younger, you should definitely have that thinking. What are you doing now, right now in your 20s, to secure a better and smoother decade of the 30s, which should then lead on to the 40s, 50s and so on. I often say we as men can mature gracefully, but that takes time. Many of us understand that a woman's beauty and prime is in her 20s, for most of them. That's why when many of them reach 30, many of them have either made poor decisions their entire life and are now in their 30s making up for the poor decisions they made in their 20s, as men do also. But just remember as a man to give yourself that time. Give yourself that space. Give yourself a chance to see who you really are. And then when you see him, yourself, remember to give him the best, better than you would ever give anyone else. Because his future is in your hands. Your future is in your hands. The future is yours. But never forget, to focus, observe. Remember, the world is yours. Have a nice day.